Hey everyone, so as an actuary, a mathematician and an investment researcher, I've always been looking to better understand the world we live in. That's what led me to systems theory, as I think it's one of the best descriptions of our world currently. So join me, because in this series I'm going to run through the different elements of systems theory and talk about how you can apply it to your daily lives. So let's get into it and talk about homeostasis. So homeostatic systems are everywhere, and not understanding where they're present means that you might end up fighting them. And also, if you manage to identify them, you can use them to your advantage. Just as a quick definition, a homeostatic system is a system that is stable around a kind of central point, i.e. that all forces operating on the system are acting in balance. Quite a lot of homeostatic systems are dynamic, which means there's some sort of movement around a central mean. Now that's quite an abstract topic, but I'm going to talk about my experience with not understanding homeostatic systems, what that caused, and then how I transformed as a result. So let's get into it. So first I'm going to give 3 examples of homeostatic systems that I didn't realize were homeostatic systems. The first is your dopamine system. The second is your metabolism. And the third is your fitness/strength. And because I didn't understand these were homeostatic systems, I did the following. For my dopamine system, basically, if I enjoyed something, I'd try to get more and more of it. And I didn't realize that each unit of pleasure was kind of diminishing as I did more of it. The initial pleasure I got wasn't the same as the end pleasure I was getting as I pushed harder into that space. And this is quite common, actually. It's talked about a lot in economics, is diminishing marginal gains. And basically, that's something that I didn't fully appreciate prior to all this research. The mistake I made with my metabolism is that I put myself in a caloric restriction to try and lose weight. And then I used to basically blow up and rebound and basically have a massive binging session because I couldn't maintain that caloric restriction. It was my belief that in order to lose weight, I had to kind of go down in this kind of linear path. And the mistake I made with my fitness and strength is I never took rest days. I was like, I'm going to do weight training every day because rest days are for wimps and I don't need to rest. And what inevitably would happen is I would get tired, I would make a mistake with my form, and I would get injured and not be able to work out for like a week with a bad back or whatever. 3 homeostatic systems, 3 mistakes. I'm going to talk through how I was transformed as a result of understanding homeostasis. So obviously I didn't understand I was dealing with homeostatic systems at this point. I decided to deal with my various blow-ups by using a lot of like heuristics that have come from people that have done well at this sort of thing. So things like take rest days, have treat days from your diet, or do a dopamine detox, and then things might feel a bit better. These are kind of heuristics that experts have kind of passed down, but they're all kind of elements of understanding that what you're trying to do is operate within a homeostatic system. As I began to understand this and understand that homeostasis is very common in biology, I started to read books about biology and recognized that actually what I was dealing with is something that is homeostatic, i.e. the harder I pushed in a direction, the harder the system would push back. And I was constantly fighting them. So the main transformation I had from realizing that these are homeostatic systems is I now work with the system rather than push against it. I'm also expecting a kind of pullback if I push in a direction because I'm aware that I'm operating in a homeostatic system and I'm not operating in a linear system. And a linear system is something that humans actually very familiar with, and it's where the amount of effort you put in directly equals the amount of output you get out. And linear is very easy to think about, and humans don't think about homeostatic systems very easily. And partly that could be due to the language we have. So our language is very much like put the lens cap on the table. It's very like linear. I did this and that happened. Whereas homeostasis is a lot more subtle than that. So yeah, if I push in a direction, I expect a pullback. I don't get too upset about that pullback because I'm expecting it. And then also I try and plan those pullbacks. And also I try and plan those pullbacks so that they're factored into the schedule and the plan so that they don't crop up on me and surprise me, or I don't push so hard that I end up being forced by the system to stop, i.e. a blow up. So for example, I try to limit my consumption of things to dopamine detox. So that means having phone-free periods during the day, or trying to only go on Instagram once a day, for example. Fasting is also a good example of this. Like, I don't know if you've ever like fasted, but the first like taste of food post-fast is always incredible. And also thirst, although I wouldn't really recommend dehydrating yourself, but you've obviously been in that situation before where that sip of water, if you're extremely thirsty, is probably one of the best things in the world. So that's how I deal with the dopamine system. For the metabolism, I factor in treat days. So that is expecting a pullback if I put myself under some sort of caloric restriction. And I found this when I was dieting. I didn't understand this. I was dieting and doing a lot of exercise. Is I would put myself under severe caloric restriction, and I was doing that because I was out cycling all day, burning thousands of calories and obviously not replenishing them. And what I found was I would just blow up. So I would get to like Sunday night or Monday night, I think, where all this exercise and caloric restriction kind of caught up with me, and I would just binge and I would eat anything I could get my hands on, which was typically breads, to be honest. But now I actually plan for a treat day. I recognize that if I put myself under some sort of caloric restriction, that the system will pull back because I'm in a homeostatic system. My metabolism is homeostatic. Therefore, I plan for that and make sure I'm eating stuff I actually quite enjoy and try and use it to my advantage. And the other thing is with exercise or weight training, I make sure I have rest days. I realize that if I stress my body in a dimension, i.e. I push it a bit hard on the run or push it a bit hard on the weights, the body is going to need time to recover. And I make sure I factor those in now and make sure that they're regular so I don't get to the point of blowing up and injuring myself. So there we have it. That's my discussion of homeostatic systems. It may seem obvious to you at this point, but I think one of the things you can look for in your daily life is where you might be working in a homeostatic system. And typically that might be a place where you find yourself blowing up or you find yourself meeting quite a lot of resistance. It's important to notice that things do fluctuate around the mean, especially in homeostatic systems. People talk about mean reversion. It's exactly the same thing. So be aware of that in your daily lives, and I'll be really interested to hear if you've got any additional examples. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to check out more from me, don't forget to check out this one here.